this computer. All right, welcome everyone to our first official night of Summer Empowerment. It is August 2024. This is our third event of the year. We have one left after this, so this is our almost, rounding it all up. We have a really amazing lineup this week. Today, I am joined with my board member, Autumn. We are going to talk about disability history and a little bit of advocacy. Tomorrow, we are talking about the psychology of change. Wednesday is probably my favorite night. So if you guys haven't signed up for Wednesday yet, I say do that immediately after this class. We are having a live painting class by Gina. So she's known on Instagram as Oops, I Broke My Neck. She's hilarious. She's very talented, and she's going to lead us through an art class.
And also make sure to pick up your art supplies. So just double check that. There is just a short list of like ideal art supplies for that.
Yes. Thank you, Autumn.
You're
Absolutely.
welcome.
Yeah, she did recommend some certain colors and a couple different style brushes. You can find those examples on both our Facebook and our Instagram. So that's perfect. I love that. And then Thursday is paracycling and Friday is moving. I'll be joining one of my other friends and we're going to discuss moving. So it's a really amazing week with a lot of topics that we have yet to cover. So come and join in, sign up. Like I said, tonight I am really excited. I am going to be co-leading a nice little loose coffee chat type style empowerment. I'm sorry, guys, my glasses are my spares and they're just a little there. We're just going to tip them like that. These are my spares, so they're a little like not reflective, but me and Autumn, we've been working together for the last couple weekends about putting together a nice little short presentation to give you guys just a brief history on disability, how it's been viewed throughout the centuries, kind of what are some things we've been dealing with in the last 100 years or so. And then Autumn is going to share a bunch of advocacy tips because that is something that she specializes in. So without further ado, we will get started. Autumn, do you have anything you'd like to say before we get started off?
No, I'm just really excited to be here. So thank you. Once we kind of get into more of the advocacy, they'll probably learn a little bit more about me, so I won't duplicate what I have to say.
I kind of figured, so that's perfect. Well, as I pull up the presentation, I'll kind of help run it for me and Autumn. She can let me know what slide she needs once we get to her slides. So can y'all see my screen okay?
Yep.
All right, perfect. Let's see if this can go into presentation mode.
Up to the right next to share.
There we go. Everyone's faces was covering it.
And full screen. Perfect. That looks great.
Awesome, guys. All right, so if you guys haven't been here before, one of the things we really love to do with Empowerment Night is give you guys just some education and some tips to kind of help you guys be a little bit more independent moving on in the future and to, self-advocate for yourself, to have that courage to go get that job, to, move to a new state, do all those things that we just kind of feel that wheelchair users can't do anymore. So we wanted to give you just a little brief history of kind of where we've gone, where we've been, and like how we can kind of keep moving forward. And so Wheel With Me Foundation in general is all about the independence and growth of wheelchair users. I was lucky enough to join the team back in 2021. Since then, I've been blessed to grow my team to 7 beautiful members. Autumn is one of my board members. She has nonprofit experience, advocacy experience, and she actually does a bunch of work up in Wisconsin still. Okay. Is this the one? This button? What button doesn't need to? There we go. Perfect. All right, so if you are not familiar with disability history, I'm going to give a very brief history on my one side, and then I'm going to let Autumn take over kind of around Judy Human. So back in really olden days, ancient Greece, if you weren't perfect, you weren't kept, right? So back in their culture and their civilization, I remember doing some research, and if the baby came out with any kind of weird deformities or missing limbs or anything like that, they actually did not let the baby live, which I thought was really interesting. So they had a really interesting view on disabilities and perfections and how to be strong and like all of that kind of stuff. One thing I forgot to put in here that me and Autumn found while we were doing some research was about ancient Egypt. In some of their hieroglyphics, they actually did show individuals with disabilities kind of in their history, which is also really great that they weren't obviously don't know the translation of those hieroglyphics, but the fact that they were able to put those individuals in their stories and in their histories was really beautiful. And I'm assuming that it was some kind of positive light spin on that, right? Um,
Hmm.
the
Hmm.
next one that I thought was really interesting was the Native American culture. Native American culture also viewed individuals with disabilities um, in a positive way. They actually didn't even have a word in their language for disabled, disability, or anything like that. They weren't seen, they weren't seen any less than. So if there was, let's say, I think the example that we had, if there was a little boy who was blind, what they would do is they would create a path down to the water where he would do that every single day. He would just go stay on his path that he knows by, by touch and feel, get the buckets of water, come back to the village, and that was his job. And he was a valued part of the community, and everyone played a role in some kind of way, no matter what their limitations or barriers could be. So that was actually really, really interesting. African American culture. So this one I put in here because when you start looking at slavery and how that kind of all started, slavery was based on disabilities. So they actually took individuals from that certain culture, and they were talking with the book explained it is that it was kind of like a pity job, right? So they were helping those who were unfit, unwell to take care of themselves. That's kind of how society looked at that. So slavery actually kind of started with individuals who were disabled and looked as they needed some pity help. And I got all of this information from a book called The Disability History of the United States. It's available on Amazon. I can link it in the comments here later and on the recording and everything as well. So a lot of this information we got from books, and we also found online, which we will link as well. So just be mindful, take it all with a grain of salt. This is just stuff that we read, and we're just kind of verbatim back to you. In the medieval times, a few hundred years ago, we were looked on as, I think the word, oh, it's not slipping my mind, but
Deviants. We were looked at, is that the word you're looking for? We were
yes,
looked at
it
as
was.
deviant.
Thank you,
Yep.
Autumn. It was deviants. So that's kind of how they looked at us, deviants. We were thrown on the street. We weren't taken care of. Um, they didn't care about us. They didn't even try to put any effort into us at all. Sometimes they would round us up, put us in jail cells, figure out a way to pass us on in the middle of the night to another community. That happened a lot back in those kind of times. If there was someone with like a mental disorder or some kind of physical disease, they would wait until the middle of the night. They would transport them in the night, in the dark of the night, and just drop them off in another community and be like, all right, that's their problem. And that's kind of how it was in the medieval era. They were just kind of shuffled around and just pushed around and weren't taken care of. Um, which is kind of leading into like the institutionalized era, which a lot of us are kind of starting to be more familiarized. We've heard a lot about this. Um, in the early 1900s, late 1800s, that's kind of when that started. People with disabilities, physical or mental, were just kind of thrown in institutions, a hospital setting, locked up, not fed well. If anyone watches American Horror Story Asylum, that's essentially what we lived like in the institutions. I'm being a little bit of a drama, but that's a really good way to look at it. I mean, they didn't care about us. People would sit in their own filth for days, just wither away. It was really, it's heartbreaking. When I learned about
You know,
it,
and
go ahead.
the thing about that is that, originally these institutions were created to help be helpful to families, right? Like they really thought that they were doing good. And not all of them, but a lot of them, right? Like their initial response was to be more positive, to allow living in a group setting, allowing parents respite, and being able to care for them. And it got out of control. And these facilities, they got overcrowded, right? Because they were new, and it became so popular, and they were underfunded, which really sounds familiar, right? Because if we think about our world right now, I feel like underfunded is like the biggest word that I hear in
Mhm.
my world of, just nonprofits and people who are caring for people who have disabilities, and the caregiver roles, and things like that. But that's a lot of what caused them to be left to those harsh conditions, right? Like not having that staff and not having those supplies, and therefore, they thought they were keeping them safe by chaining them truly to their beds so they couldn't wander or they couldn't get away. And, in their minds, originally, they thought that this was to protect them. And the fact that they thought that living in these inhumane, absolutely abhorrent conditions was okay, but like you said, Brie, like, it kind of changed, and then these attitudes kind of shifted, and um these warehouses got shut down because finally someone said enough is enough. Like, we're sick of being this marginalized community, and we're sick of having this stigma as people who need to live in these institutions and, you know, be treated as not human. And, I feel like that's really um when a lot of people talk about advocacy and things like that, is where they
Yeah.
kind of start that big advocacy journey, and um when that really started.
Well, and it's also because we finally got that like um that not awareness, but we finally got that like people finally started seeing it. That's when people started getting the photographs of it, that video footage of it, and they actually got to see the inside, and they were like, what is going on here? And for years, no one actually got to see what was going on. And so like Autumn said, it was when we finally got to be represented like in those really like shock value scary documentaries. That's when people are like, okay, this is absolutely terrifying. We really need to figure out how to make this better. Um, let us know what you guys are thinking so far. Have you guys heard of any of these historical, cultural facts? Have you guys heard of anything different? What's something that you maybe
Oh,
didn't know
Brie cut out.
before?
Yeah, have you heard about anything? Oh, so Monica said they're not all shut down and some still exist today. It moved to mental health institutions and prisons. You're
Mhm.
totally right. Like, there's still so much fighting going on. I know in my state where I live in Wisconsin, there's been a lot of legislative action taken in the last few years. One of the biggest things, I think it was last year, was in a school setting, and not allowing students in school settings to be restrained. And so there was this big action on the restraint used in schools currently. And there was a lot of advocacy work done throughout our state capital and things like that. And so, you're right, it happens everywhere. It's still occurring in the United States, and across our world.
Mhm. Yeah, it's crazy to think about, and then that's kind of why we wanted to kind of start with where we've kind of been to understand why it's important to kind of keep moving in the right direction, right? That's why it's really important to work on advocacy, to look at things, to challenge ideas that we have, because some of these ideas that we're about to move into, they're 30, 40 years old. They're not helping us anymore. They didn't even barely help us back then when they were first put into motion. So I think it's really, really important to kind of see all of that kind of information. Um,
Monica says Massachusetts uses shock treatment on autistic children. The FDA would not forbid it.
mhm,
And yeah, like, this is, this again, like Bree said, this is why we wanted to talk about like where it all kind of came from, of the information that we gathered in a shorter period of time, just with books and kind of a little bit of research that we did, and then, moving on to what it looks like today. And like Bree said, how long has the ADA been enacted? How long have these advocacy efforts been going on? I mean, we can look way back. I mean, really, we don't know. We don't know. Did people advocate back then? I would think so, but were their voices heard? And we have things like social media, and we have this power to connect on a whole new level than we used to have. And one thing that I feel so strongly about is that people like Judy Heumann, Ed Roberts, Justin Dart, there are so many others. There are. So I know we missed a bunch of them, but those were just the three that we were like, okay, these are the three that we'll cover right now. But why it's so important to follow in those wheels, right? Like, to remember that they fought tirelessly for us. And I think that a lot of the times it's taken for granted. And I know that I've taken these things for granted. And, I think that's what really got me involved in the advocacy work that I do. So, um, I guess this is my opportunity to talk about that a little bit. So I have been in a wheelchair for 22 years. So since I was 16 years old, and my advocacy started literally the moment that I came to, with how things were going on in the hospital, with goals that I had really wanted to fulfill, that they didn't feel like maybe I could in a certain amount of time. And so that's really where my advocacy journey started in regards to self advocacy. Also, being a 16-year-old, I didn't have the ability to make my own choices since I was a minor. And being able to still have that bodily autonomy as a minor in those situations, I really learned how to advocate for my needs and for my wants. And I had a really, really, really supportive mom who was amazing in helping me learn in my advocacy journey. And I've really grown a lot because I think about some of the ways that I used to advocate, and it definitely wasn't assertive and it definitely wasn't respectful. And in those moments, I definitely wasn't heard as much as I can be heard now as I've grown in the last 22 years. And so personally, I'm an advocate, but also professionally, I work at an independent living center in Wisconsin. And my role there is an advocacy coordinator. And so I teach youth self advocacy. If anybody needs help advocating in any setting, so I've helped advocate at IEP meetings, to obtain appropriate medical care. And so advocacy is true to my heart, and it is not just a part of me, it's truly who I am in so many ways. And so as we get moving, we talk about people like Judy Heumann and Ed Roberts and Justin Dart. Have you guys ever heard of any of those names before?
See some head nods over here. Let's see. Go and drop it in the chat if you want as well. Oh,
Oops, I think I muted myself there. Sorry about that. But yeah, if you want to unmute yourself and talk to us, share that way, drop it in the chat. Like, we don't want this to just be a presentation. If you want to join this conversation, this is an open invite to you to join that.
mm-hmm.
Hi there, old disabled
Hi.
person here.
Hey.
Yes, I know these names. And people, this is who was advocating for us. Advocacy really didn't happen unless you had really cool parents, because when I was born almost 60 years ago, they were told to put me in an institution. I was born with spina bifida. And until Ed Roberts, Judy Heumann, Justin Dart spoke up, spoke out, until the sit-ins, until we took over for ourselves.
Yes.
That's when the change happened. And yes, it is better than it was pre-ADA, because you have something to point to and say, this is the ADA, and it's telling you it's wrong. But people don't get that the ADA is the floor, not the ceiling.
Right.
That
100%.
Yep, exactly.
you need to do more than that. So,
Yep.
yeah.
No, thank you for saying that. Thank you for that exact quote too, because I love that so much. It's the floor, not the ceiling. And I think that we take it as it is, right? We're just like, oh, well, this is what we have, and this is just how it is. But no, and people like Judy Heumann and Ed Roberts and Justin Dart, they showed us that our voices matter, and when we unite, they matter even more. And like, I think it's great. Thank you all for showing up tonight. And like, if we can do this, like, imagine we could connect, we could really start something. But for those of you who haven't heard about them, Judy Heumann, she is a lifelong advocate. She's known as, really like of the mother, right? The mother of the disability rights movement. And she contracted polio at a really young age. She wasn't even 2 years old. And, her parents they were like, well, got to figure it out, Judy. You got to figure it out. And so she did. And her personal experiences, and I love her. Like, I feel like she is one of my biggest idols. Like, her personal experience is what fueled her advocacy journey. Starting, well, I shouldn't say starting, but one of the big movements was in 1970, she sued the New York City Board of Education because they said, sorry, you can't be a teacher. You're a fire hazard. You're in a wheelchair. How could you possibly teach children? They asked her, how are you going to teach the children how to use the bathroom? And she's like, do the other teachers have to? Like, well, how are you going to go to the bathroom? Do the other
They,
teachers need to show you how
they
they go to the
asked her
bathroom? Right?
such personal, inappropriate questions. She's like,
Yes.
because I'm in a wheelchair doesn't give you the right to talk to me like that. Like, and that
Uh-oh.
Oh, yeah. Oh, we lost you for a hot minute there, Bree. But yeah, so she won this case and became the first teacher in New York City who used a wheelchair. She was not the first person that was denied a teaching license. Um, so, that's interesting. The 504 sit-in, like you had said, Monica, about the sit-in, she played such a crucial role in it. If you haven't had an opportunity to either read her book or listen to the audiobook, which is how I did it, I actually bought it because I listened to it a lot, especially when I'm feeling really just angry and mad and sour and pissed off at my life. Excuse my language, but like I need that. Like she fuels me and just lights me on fire. And I like my family is always like, watch out, world, after I get started on one of mine after listening to it. But it was a non-violent, so the longest non-violent um um get together. I don't know what to call that.
Sit-in?
Yes, as at a federal building in US history. Like they used the bathrooms there. They brought their attendants there. Like it was it's just such an empowering movement. And like I said, if you've not had a chance to listen to that, please, it is 100% worth your time. And if I feel like you will learn so much about it because every time I listen to it, I catch something new or I write down a quote and I post it in my bathroom or on my refrigerator because it's amazing. And that sit-in was such a major victory for those of us. Really, I shouldn't say those of us. I should say everybody, for literally everybody, because everybody got to have a taste of the amazing things that we can do, right? And Judy was there to say that I am amazing and I can do these amazing things and you need to let me because I know what I'm capable of. You don't get to tell me what I am capable of. Um, she also founded the World Institute on Disability with Ed Roberts and then a person named Joan Leon. So, I love that her and Ed Roberts had worked so closely together. There's some videos out there. There's a lot, but there's a few specific ones on YouTube, and I'll get the links over to Bree, and maybe she can post them when she sends out the recording. But they're really amazing to watch, and they're very empowering. And like I said, her book is called Being Human. It's Heumann. And Ed Roberts, so he's referred to as the father of the independent living movement. And he was diagnosed with polio, but he was much older than Judy. He was diagnosed at the age of 14. And I remember reading something that said that he attended school through the telephone in his home. So think telephones back then on the cord, right? Like he was laying down and that's how he attended school. There was no interaction. It's not like the Zoom calls that we have now. And he attended school like that for, gosh, I want to say a year, but don't quote me. I really don't know that exact time frame, but he had said something along the lines of like, I remember going back to school and I remember everybody staring at me. And I really had two choices in that moment. And I decided to not be offended. I was like a star. I was like a star. Everybody was looking at me. And I was going to take that opportunity and use it. And I was going to use that, right? He created that platform for himself because we all know, we all get it. We're all stared at, right? We all probably react differently. I know that I react differently depending on my mood, right? Like I know that my 11-year-old reacts differently now than when he did when he was 6. He doesn't find it as endearing as he used to. He gets a little bit offended depending on it, right? And so, well, we have two choices in that moment. We really do. We can be offended at the fact that people are looking at us. I guess we have three. We could just ignore it, right? Or we can try to take that as a moment to educate in whatever way that looks. Saying hi, right? Just like, hey, like, what's up? I've been like, do you got a question? Like, is there, like, I will answer your question if I have that time, right? And I know not all of us feel comfortable with that, and that's okay because it's within your own comfort levels. I'm like, but I kind of just take where I'm feeling at that moment, on what I do in those situations. But Ed Roberts, he in 1962, he became the first student with severe disabilities to attend UC Berkeley. And he had to fight for that. They said, we don't take people like you. You're far too disabled. We've never had to care for that. And so he was refused admission due to his disability, not because he didn't meet his qualifications, none of that. And so he fought that, and he won that. And moving on 10 years later, right? He had graduated. He founded the very first Center for Independent Living. Actually, I shouldn't say that, but I believe it was one of the first centers for independent living in Berkeley. He was the co-founder for that. And obviously, I'm passionate about that as well because I work for an independent living center, and we help people with disabilities. We are there to help them lead independent and productive lives, right? In whatever way that looks, because it looks differently for us all. And a few years later, he accepted a job for the Department of Vocational Rehab, the same organization that told him that he was unemployable. He became the director. Like, kabam, right? Like, this just shows that when you put your mind to things, when people tell you no, you can't, you know, put your wheels down, like, advocate for yourself. And if you need help in those situations, contact us. Like, we are here for you in these situations because Wheel With Me is also here to help empower you. Like, this is what these are about. These sessions is to help. That's why they're called empowerment, right? You guys, like, this is to empower you. This is to fire you up. And so he really laid that foundation for the independent living movement. And Justin Dart, sadly, I really didn't know a super ton about him. I know who he was. I knew he was, I've seen him in pictures. Brie, I know we have a picture somewhere in that slideshow of him signing the ADA. And so he's called the godfather of the Americans with Disabilities Act because he had such a pivotal role in this civil rights legislation, right? And so he was an advocate. He contracted polio as well. I actually don't know how old he was when he contracted polio. I didn't look that one up, so I apologize. But he had a very influential family, but that's not actually how he became so popular in regards to these disability rights movements. Like, he created it himself, and in what I had read, and I believe it was a very good source, but what I had read is he was kind of like, a lot of his family was like, whew, this guy's a lot, right? And they kind of lost track because, right, when we have our voices, it can be a lot. I know that for other people, right, it's a matter of ignorance, and that's why I think that education is our route. So he really helped with the passage of the ADA, and the ADA was passed in 1990, y'all. It was not that long ago. We just celebrated the anniversary of it. 34 years. Really? Are we serious? It's only been enacted for 34 years. And then at the same time, I'm like, it's been enacted for that long, and this is as far as we've gotten. I'm so grateful for everyone's work in that. I'm so grateful for everyone who's worked since then, but there's so much more work to be done. And that's up to us. Yeah, Tanya, you unmuted yourself.
That's one of the things about listening to Judy Heumann's book is like, it's done so much, but we're still fighting for so much of that. Like, that was kind of the disheartening thing, is like, we're still fighting for that stuff. And we're so much more that we're trying to get, and and it's still a struggle, and it's just disheartening. It's like you said, they've done so much, and to answer your question, I think Judy Heumann for sure has been a huge impact. And but that was one of those things. It's just there's so much that we need, and so much that needs to be done. So, but yeah.
And so I just like, I was like, what, I was trying to research, like what really has been done
Yeah.
in this time frame, right? So I'm like, okay, so I've Social Security, 1935, got Medicare and Medicaid in 65. Um, the Rehab Act of 73, the Individuals with Disabilities Act, 1975, the Fair Housing Act in 1988. So we've had, these things before that, right? So 1990s were really where we got that, like that really, really, really big win as well in regards
Yeah.
to that. But like you said, Tanya, and like that, like the book says, like there's so much more work to be done. And how can we get there? How can we unite? And so I always go to my boss. I'm like, you know what? Sometimes being nice and us just like writing our letters and stuff, yes, it's important. Write to your legislators, call them, pester them, leave them voicemails. They work for us, you guys. They work for us. We elect them, right? And so we have that ability. We have that right to contact them and tell them how we feel because we are their constituents. It matters. We are who they are supposed to represent. And so if you have something, if you have a problem with your insurance, if you have state Medicaid and you're having issues, yes, we have our ombudsman, but we also have our elected people within our representatives in Congress and things like that. But I always go straight to my state representatives. Like that's my first stop. Or, kind of like in regards to our state capital, there should be a map online where you can find out if you don't know who your representatives are, you can figure that out. But another thing is in Wisconsin, we have disability advocacy days. It happens once a year, and I put some pictures up there that Bree will get to. And it's important to show up to those things if you have the ability to, because then we're seen. Here we get to meet with our representatives. If you don't have that in your state, hit me up. Let's see what we can do to try to create something like that in your state. There's a whole bunch of different organizations that combine to create that. We also have what's called Independent Living Days at the Capitol, and I also put pictures up of that. And that's where us as independent living centers, we attend and we also meet with our representatives, and we cover the entire state of Wisconsin throughout our 8 independent living centers in Wisconsin. And so we invite and reach out to every single person that represents us. So in these pictures, so this one is the one of the ADA with that signing. And Justin Dart is the one who's in the cowboy hat. He really became known for that cowboy hat. Keep moving on. I'll come back to that. Kind of got ahead of myself. So that's me on the left in front of our state capitol, and to the right, that's just a small clip of the group of people that attended Disability Advocacy Days 2 years ago. All right. Go ahead, one more. And this is my son. He comes to these events with me, and it shows that he's been coming to them with me, right? You can see the growth in the 2 pictures. And so we're building the next generation of change makers, right? We are change makers, but we're also building this next generation. And if what they see, they take, right? And so can you go ahead one more, Bree? This is one that I am like, I beam. So there's a picture on the left, but I zoomed in on it on the right. That is a picture of my son who bought a suit specifically for Disability Advocacy Days, and he is holding a microphone in his hand, and he is chanting in front of the state capitol on the steps, nothing about us without us. And I know, like I feel like my voice is cracking when I Oop, I muted myself because that's one of those moments where he sees what I'm doing. He sees the impact that I'm making. And if I make impact on nobody, I'm making an impact on him, and he in turn is making that impact. You guys, this is a domino effect, and it's real. And this happened to me when I flew for my first time ever I got chatting with people, and the lady that was next to me on the plane, she's like, I'll wait with you, but why are you waiting? I was like, yeah, like I was first one on, last one off. She's like, oh my gosh. And I was like, yeah, but have you used the bathroom? She's like, yeah, you can't, right? Like she didn't even think about it. Like it took her, but she's like, you can't. And I was like, exactly. Like it's really hard. And so these are those little moments where
Yeah.
you can teach anybody and they trickle down. And this is where it starts. And so if you don't feel comfortable advocating at your state capitol right now, that's okay. It's all about these baby steps. And so I'm going to go back, sorry, to the types of advocacy. Where are we at for time? 5:40. Okay, we're good. And please feel free, like I said, please join in on this conversation. Unmute yourself, raise your hand, type it in the chat. I love to have conversations. But so these are, I put some because there's so many different types of advocacy, but there's systems advocacy, right? And that's the pictures that I showed you. Focusing on changing policies or practices at a bigger level to benefit a group of people or society as a whole. And really it's aiming to creating these long lasting changes. So things like the ADA, but also things on smaller scales as well. Individual advocacy, so working on behalf of a person. And so when I'm working in my job as an advocate one-on-one with someone who maybe needs some assistance at an IEP meeting with their child, like that's more of an individual advocacy moment because I'm working with and directed at a specific person to make sure that their individual needs are met. There's peer advocacy, which really is what Wheel With Me is all about. And if you have the ability to do peer advocacy at like maybe your rehab center. I keep muting myself, sorry. Bree, I think that you do this. I know that Jesse does this. And so if you're ever given an opportunity at like a local hospital or something like that to be a peer advocate, but really honestly being a peer advocate is just like what I did on the plane or just kind of talking with people about that as well. Another part of peer advocacy is, just what Bree posted the pictures of, the retreat where you are there with other people that use wheelchairs. We just get it on a different level. You're able to bond on a different level. You're able to talk about things and really understand
So
them.
you
On
can't
a
put it into
different
words. It's
No,
you can't. Yeah.
you can't. You can't. Like I have goosebumps. It was such a soulful, filling experience that I never like. I knew it was going to be amazing and beautiful, but it was beyond my expectations. And the things that I learned about myself in those moments with my peers was something that I can't read out of a book. It was indescribable. And then there's self-advocacy, right? So essentially it's just asking for what you need, asking for what you want. But in doing so, doing it assertively, doing it respectfully, speaking up for yourself to make sure that you get what you want and what you need. But a part of being a really good self-advocate is knowing why you need what you need, right? And being able to tell them why you need the things that you need, especially in like a school or a work setting. Those, it's really important always, but really in a school or a work setting. So maybe asking for accommodations or things like that, because in those moments you are being a self-advocate. If you really, really want this job, but the hours absolutely can't work for you, and you need a little bit of a later start because of maybe personal cares, it's okay to self-advocate and say, hey, could we work on a flexible schedule? If you don't have a big enough workspace, or if you need a different desk, being able to advocate for those needs. And those are just tiny little examples. But really being able to understand and effectively communicate what your needs, your wants, all of those things are crucial to being a great self-advocate. And I always tell my students, and so I'm going to say it because really we're all students. The biggest important part about being a self-advocate is practicing. It's practicing. If you have to practice with yourself like you did in maybe public speaking class in front of a mirror, do that. That's okay. If you want to call me and you want to practice with me, give me a call. I would love to do that. But, just be your own self-advocate, because nobody knows what you need other than you. People don't need to speak for you if you have and if you are capable of speaking for yourself. There's collective advocacy, which really is a group of individuals with a shared interest advocating for a common goal. And so really it kind of blends in with whatever area it could be a part of. And cause and systems are really similar, but a cause is more dedicated to something very specific, and it's more focused on raising awareness, and like ramping up public support, which can often migrate into that systems advocacy becoming a whole. So yeah, like obviously I'm passionate about advocacy, and I really want you to be passionate about advocacy as well, because it impacts us all. It's for the greater good, and it can impact our lives, and it can impact the lives of the people around us. So I know Bree has been like hammering out questions. So let's take these last, 15 minutes and let's talk. Let's talk. Tell me your thoughts. Tell me anything you want to share.
Well, I'm used to speaking, so it's
Perfect. I love it.
another way that you can advocate, hey, is that every single state has a disability rights organization. It's federally funded. It is the Office of Protection and Advocacy for different horrible places, sometimes, and sometimes not. Usually, yes. And their board of directors is required to have disabled people on it. And I'm on the board for Disability Rights PA. And so that is something that anybody can do. If you look up disability rights in your state, sometimes they have strange names. Usually it's disability rights,
And then
Wisconsin,
the
Rhode
state.
Island,
Yep,
wherever.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for adding that, because yes, that is also such an important. And follow their Facebook pages and
Yep.
go to their websites, because they put out like Act Now. Like I know Act Now is a little bit different, but like hey, here's an opportunity for advocacy if you want to reach out. And sometimes they'll have some verbiage if you just have a really hard time coming up with what you want to say. I know that when I first started, like I used to be like blah, 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 on my words all the time. All the time. I promise you that I was. Like I know that I'm a great speaker now because I'm confident in this topic, because I'm passionate about this topic. But if you give me something that I'm not confident about and it's not something that I'm used to, I will blubber all over it. And and that's okay. That's okay, because that's how you get started, right? Like I said, it's like practice. It really is. So thank you so much, Monica, for sharing that, because that is such an important piece. In independent living centers as well, we are required to have over 50% of board and employees as people with disabilities. So I'm going to put in another plug for your local independent living center, wherever that is, because wherever you're at, you should have it. Now, that's not a 100%. There are some counties throughout the United States that are not covered. But if you're having a hard time finding your local independent living center, please hit me up. I would love to help you with that. Whether that be, maybe you want to be a peer advocate, maybe you want to get more involved in self-advocacy, maybe you're looking for a job to see what they have available. Not all independent living centers are created equally. I know that we are so lucky in Wisconsin that we have such an amazing band of independent living centers, because we actually also have a Wisconsin Independent Statewide Living Network where we all talk to each other, which is also not always statewide. But that is just kind of an example of what collaboration can do as well. What else, Monica? I feel like you're a wealth of knowledge.
only because I'm old and I've been doing this too damn long.
Oh.
Well, you can look around in, through your cells, through your independent living centers, and also look around for other advocacy groups. Look for, like, I'm part of Access Mob Pittsburgh, and we're doing talks about hybrid talks about voting and how to figure out the waiver programs in PA because they're a little bit messy, and different things. And you get to meet other people. If you see something that is talking about disability, any kind of like get together, go talk to people. You don't even have to know them. Just go up to them, talk to them. We all have something in common. We all have similar experiences. I will guarantee you that everybody who is on this call knows, has a similar experience with access transportation, that basically it's not the best. And that's being kind. So there's a lot of stuff that you can do. And as you talk to people, you get involved in different things. That's what I did. I retired. I did not have the time to do all of this while I was working. Kudos to and raising kids. Kudos to you guys who can, because I could not.
That's why I just made it my job. I can do a little bit of both, right?
Yep. And then, you start talking to people and you get involved in things and you find the parts of advocacy that you like, because there is a ton of opportunities in so many places, that, there's all different parts. There's in the disability world, there are people who have sensory deficits. There are people who have mental health issues. There are people with mobility issues. I mean, there are so many different aspects of disability, and we need to pull together and fight for all of us. Because I don't know about Wisconsin, but in Pennsylvania, we're very siloed. We have mobility people over here, mental health over here.
Yep.
And then autism is its own thing.
Yep.
And
there's no blends. There's a huge gap in. So if you're a person with a physical disability who also has mental health challenges, you can't be on this, like, if you're on a specific program, the program's not going to cover your mental health. Or if you're on the other program, that program's not going to cover your caregiver need or your physical limitations. And so there's no blending or braiding of care. And so you're right. And I love how you also said about pick what you want, right? Because I've been involved in a bunch of different. So like you said, voting. I'm part of a parking committee because I'm so passionate about parking. I was in Minnesota over the weekend and they literally have signs up that says access aisle, do not park here. And then on the hash lines, it says do not park. And I'm like, what? If anyone could just do these two simple things, it might help a little bit, right? Or there's ones that put one big barrier, which those aren't ideal always either, but you pick what you want. With my kid too, right? Getting involved in those
and get involved in stuff that isn't necessarily disability. Say your passion is theater and you want to be on the board of directors for your local theater. Do it.
Yes.
Because you know what? Disability, we're not just, we talk about healthcare, we talk about access, we talk about, accommodations, but we're so much more than that. Because
we want to go to the theater too.
Yeah, we want to go to the theater too. We want to see actors and actresses that look like us.
Yeah.
I mean, so there is so much, and it's how much teaching that we do just by showing up places.
Yep.
Granted, that also means that strange women come up to me and hug me in Walmart and congratulate me for buying frosted flakes by myself, but that's okay. That's okay.
Right.
Moment.
So in those moments, right? I really love to be like, congratulations for shipping yourself. Right? Like, let's go. But yes, you are so right.
But it's just getting involved and finding your niche. And look, Facebook is a great place to find events. Just type in disability in your area and I guarantee you find some. If anybody's in Pittsburgh, Disability Pride Pittsburgh is this weekend on the 24th. So,
Ooh.
yeah, worth a drive from Wisconsin, I guarantee you.
Yeah, right. But I was just in Minnesota. I'm like, I can't take another trip, but hey, maybe next year. That would be fun. Our Disability Pride Festival was when I was gone, Bree, so I didn't make ours, but that's okay. That's okay. I'm glad I went to Maine. Anything else? Does anybody else more to share? I know our time is kind of winding down, but we still have time. We've got like 6 minutes. We're here.
James, you tried to unmute earlier. Did you have something you wanted to share earlier? Oh, I think he might be trying, maybe.
That's
Oh,
okay. Can you unmute him
I might be able to.
as the host? I think you can.
I can just ask him to unmute.
There.
Are we there?
Yeah,
Okay.
I
I'm
can
sorry.
hear you.
I don't ever really use Zoom from my phone, so I always use my computer, but I didn't know how to access it from my computer. So on the phone, I had no idea that my video wasn't on, or I think that was just me trying to like access everything, but I just wasn't really aware of how to do it.
No, that's okay. Well, thank you so much for joining us. Have you had moments where you're like, oh yeah, I like when you're feeling it, you're like, gosh, yeah, I advocated this, or do you resonate with any of that?
You know what? I like just hearing what you say. Honestly, I don't have a lot of situations like that. I don't, listening to everything. Like it kind of like opened my eyes to a lot of things that I don't necessarily see in my life. So not a whole lot, but I do like the thought of like getting out there and, joining joining groups, which is not something that I usually do.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much for taking time out of your evening to join us.
Yeah, no problem.
If you were going to get involved with a certain type of movement, James, what do you think would be something that you're passionate about? Kind of how like Autumn was saying that she gets involved with like the parking stuff and things like that. So if there was an issue that you do kind of feel passionate about, or that does like grind your gears, is there anything specific that you would ever take time to advocate for?
In the town that I live in, a lot of the restaurants are downtown and they're old. They don't have ability like that. That's the thing that really, really bugs me. Going to the old restaurants that just don't have the bathroom capabilities. So a lot of the times my family likes to go to these, or friends like to go to these, and I already know that, okay, I can't use the bathroom in that facility. So it's not something that I really, enjoy to be a part of. Or if I am, it's only for an hour at most, because then I have to.
Yep, cut your liquids or whatever that looks like. Yeah, you're not able to really fully immerse yourself and be what you want in that moment. Yeah, I get that.
That's the biggest thing for me.
That's huge.
Yeah, honestly, I was thinking about it too. And I like advocacy more on like a self level than on like a cause or systems level. I think that's a little bit too macro for me personally. Just because I have a lot of other things on my plate and my, where my life is right now, and like where I've been kind of like growing up in a place with like very limited resources and stuff like that. So I'm always like, well, I just figure it out. That's just what we do, right? So I'm kind of stuck in that mindset. But if there was ever a chance for me to get more involved with things, I would really love to get more involved with like the transportation side of things, right? Like how do we make our vehicles more affordable and accessible, driving programs more affordable and accessible. I have some of you guys are familiar with my Wednesday night meetings that I used to run, and there's a girl who would come to my Wednesday night meetings, and she's still waiting to get in driving classes. She's been on the wait list for years. She can't even take the driving classes to move on forward to get her license in her state. So
You need to put her in contact with me.
yes, ma'am.
Well, I'm gonna try. I've got some ideas. Like you say that, I'm like, okay, idea. But yes.
Right. So like things like that, or like how can we make the airports a little bit better, more consistent? Honestly, it's not better, it's consistency for me.
Yes.
as
Yes.
a woman who travels for work very like all the time, like I'm in an airport probably 3 or 4 times round trip a month, most months. And it's just the consistency. There's lack of consistency. Either it's if it's the same airline or the same airport, every time I come in, it's always something different. So that is what I would love to fix with like the transportation side of things. So, and again, I just want to echo what Autumn was saying about thank you for coming and thank you for inputting and being involved. Ali, you didn't need to share, but thank you for just absorbing everything. I'm sorry if I'm kind of glitching out. I apologize. But if there's any last comments, any last ideas, thoughts, questions, anything along those lines, we'd love to hear it right before we go. Otherwise, I can
This was great. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you all for
I really
coming.
liked it.
Thank you very much.
no,
Monica,
I'm definitely
please,
gonna reach out to
Monica,
you, Autumn.
yeah, Monica,
Yes.
yeah. And Monica, please reach out. Like, I'd love to
Sure.
pick your brain a little bit. I love it. I love that you've been around. I feel like that's great. That's good. Like, you can teach us. I'm here to
Oh, good
learn
Lord.
your powers.
I don't know how many powers I have. If I had powers, they'd be doing more and following the ADA, making it better.
Oh, I know. I get that.
It's just that's the other thing is you have to have a lot of, I don't know, downtime or a way to relax, like meditating or something, because sometimes you feel like you're taking 2 steps forward and then one back. So,
And I say a whole level of sick humor sometimes. That's what gets me through my life.
well,
Sick
there's
humor and
that too.
caffeine.
But I'm an amputee as well, and my first Halloween, I dressed up as a pirate and scared small children. So,
I love it.
that is
You gotta laugh at stuff, man, because otherwise you won't stop crying. That's what I say.
Mhm.
Like,
Truth.
you gotta.
yeah, it's
You guys
true.
are the best. What a great way to kick off the week. I think this was fantastic. Thank you guys for participating and listening and engaging and giving us feedback. There are some questions in here. If you guys ever want any of the questions, I can toss them in the post follow-up email. Autumn and I are going to connect. I'm going to get her work email or an email that she's comfortable sharing with you guys. So if you guys have any questions or additional stuff for her, you guys can reach out that way. I also will toss in a couple links. I tossed them in this chat if you haven't seen them already, but I will also toss in the links for the 2 books that we discussed, the Judy Heumann one, the disability history one. And then there was another link that we had tossed in here too. I can't remember what it was.
I'm going to get that YouTube link of the 2 videos, the Crip Camp video, and then that one that you and I talked about. I don't remember what to call it, but yes.
So we'll have a bunch of really fun resources added to the post-event email. You'll get this video, our contact information, and some other fun things right before we leave. Just give me one quick second to pull this up. So we keep these events free for a reason. We love the idea of just sharing information and, empowering one another, right? Like that's the whole point. So our goal is to keep these events free for wheelchair users forever. Even as a nonprofit grows, we're not going to charge you guys anything to come. But something I am going to start asking, and every night I will be dropping some links in the bottom of the chat. If you guys want to find different ways to support us, we would love it, right? We are still growing our mission. We are still growing our platform and doing our goals. We do have some merchandise if you guys are interested in checking it out. We have some hoodies, we have some shirts. That all goes back to the nonprofit that helps support what we're doing. We have a book coming out here probably early 2025, so please keep an eye out for that. I don't have too much more information on that, but we do want to keep these events free. And so we ask if you want to support us in other ways, we will drop our product link here. You can check out and see what we have. We're going to be updating that here again in 2025 with some more stuff. But that's all we ask. We ask either share the link with your friends, buy a gift for your mom, whatever you can.
And that's the best, right? Just share. And what you did tonight, join us. That's great.
Yeah, and share the recording if you found that this information was really valuable, or you learned something and you think that this is going to impact one of your friends or someone else who's newly injured. share this with them, whether you're watching this live or watching the recording, pass this along, you know, help your community get stronger and get a little bit better. Again, I want to thank you guys all for joining us. Thank you, Autumn, for sharing your expertise and your passion and your peer education. That is exactly what We With Me Foundation stands for. And she just dove right in. I sent her a private text message halfway through. I'm like, I don't have to do anything because you're killing it. Your passion. We wouldn't have empowerment nights without presenters like Autumn and their passions and their, you know, and their energy for this. So thank you, Autumn, for coming and just giving all of your energy to us. Tomorrow we have Carrie Jean. She's going to speak about the psychology of change. She's hilarious. If you don't follow her on Instagram, you should, I'll attach her link to the stuff tomorrow, but she has the best humor for, like, you know, kind of processing and doing all the things. Wednesday is that live painting class. Thursday, we're doing a session on paracycling, and Friday we're talking about moving to a new state with a disability. I did that as a paraplegic. We're going to have a quadriplegic come along and just kind of share different things that we learned from our experiences and things that we want to like share with others if they're going to try doing the same thing. So if you're not registered for any of those other nights, please feel free to head to our Facebook, our Instagram, any kind of links. I'll even drop a link in the email. Register for the rest of the nights. Thank you guys so much for coming. I really appreciate your time and your attention and everything. And on that note, you guys have an amazing Monday. Get yourself a snack, get some water, feel better. Thank you so much, Monica, for sharing. Thank you, Allie, for coming. James, I'll be seeing you again soon. I love seeing his handsome face. Same with Chris. We didn't get to see Chris's face today, but that guy's just as good looking and fun. So, guys, have a happy Monday, and we'll see you guys tomorrow. Bye, everyone.
Bye. Thank you.